Yes! Hello, my beautiful friends. What an amazing day it is. And welcome back. I hope that your weekend was outstanding and incredible, and you're feeling rejuvenated upon your return. We got a lot of business to attend to today. Of course, we're keeping our eye on what is happening live. Maybe just 30 minutes from now, the confirmation of Tulsi Gabbard. This has not happened yet, but we can see C-SPAN is reporting in about 30 minutes from now, 5:30 Eastern time, Tulsi Gabbard should hopefully become our new Director of National Intelligence. So to advance her nomination. So I'm not sure exactly if this is just out of the committee or if this is the full vote. But of course, we're going to find out very soon in about 30 minutes. We'll come back for that. But we've got a bunch of other updates because, man, fresh out of the oven, we had news that Trump is filing his appeal. He's currently under attack from a bunch of different judges in Rhode Island, in New York, and then we'll talk about what the Democrats' plan is because they've got Chuck Schumer out with a 4-part plan. Norm Eisen and many others are rallying the troops and bringing on a bunch of attorneys to sue Trump and his administration everywhere you can think of. So we'll talk about all of that. And of course, as I mentioned, Tulsi Gabbard is a case that we'll keep our eye on. And let me just pop that out right now so we don't miss anything. Make sure we got that right there. And boom. Okay, so if that changes, we'll be apprised on this thing. But it's a beautiful weekday, my friends. I hope your weekend was amazing. Now let's just get right into it, shall we? Because we got some interesting filings that are happening, starting with this one. President Trump appeals the judge's order that is essentially suspending his presidency. We've seen multiple judges come out from Rhode Island and New York, a bunch of states suing, a bunch of attorneys generals from Team Blue coming out hard, swinging against President Trump, trying to stall his executive orders, saying, what do you think you are, the president? What do you think this is, the executive branch? No, we're judges. And so we get to decide, oh, your decision here, Trump, is too harmful for these poor bureaucrats. And so you can't do what you want to do. Now, Trump today has submitted his notice of appeal. Now, not much is happening in this document, but let me read through it here and then we'll fill in what got us to this point, because I want to show you his argument that is coming from the DOJ. You can see the Department of Justice responded as defendants, right? The government is being sued here. And so we've got a 17-pager that is detailing what the framework, the skeleton upon which Trump's DOJ will build their defense upon, coming out here today shortly. But here is the appeal. Trump says, look, all right, all of this stuff, in this case, this was the state of New York. And a lot of this can be a little bit confusing because this is a Rhode Island case. We're not in New York, but the state of New York with Tish James and a bunch of others are suing Trump and the Treasury Department and basically everybody else, right? Huge list of names on both sides of the V. This one's in Rhode Island, but the state of New York is also suing in New York. We'll talk about that case later. But here, Trump is now appealing what was called a TRO, a temporary restraining order. The court came back down and said, Trump, you're temporarily enjoined. You are restrained from firing these people and cutting off their access to this and doing these things. And the judges were essentially saying because it's too harmful and because there might be due process violations and because you don't have this power and blah, blah, blah. All nonsense, as we'll see. But they're activist judges who are being very activist, as we'll break down. So Trump said, all right, we're appealing this, we're appealing this, we're appealing this. We intend to request a stay of this court's orders pending the appeal, including an immediate administrative stay from the United States Court of Appeals for the First District out of Rhode Island. And what this case looks like, it's been happening very quickly, but let me just explain who this judge is. The judge is named John James McConnell Jr. Don't know if he's got any relation to Mitch McConnell, but you can see this was filed not too long ago and it's been a ton of activity. So this is the docket, loads of exhibits, emergency motions, and so on. And we'll come up to speed on what is happening in the most recent updates. But as you can see here, here was the notice of appeal. Now, who is this judge? It is this guy, Judge John J. McConnell Jr. Nice close-up there, what he looks like there in his judicial robe. And he was nominated by Barack Obama back on January 5th, 2011, and got his commission and has been serving in this position ever since. Rhode Island, born in 1958 in Providence there. Law clerk, private practice, and more. So an Obama person who is now ruling on this case and is a district judge. Okay, this is not the Supreme Court. This is not a co-equal branch of government that's saying, whoa, Trump, you can't do this stuff. This is some district judge nominated by Barack Obama. And clearly, as we'll see, in my opinion, being very activist, and questions will remain about what we can do about all this. And of course, we'll come back to that. So that is what the judge looks like. And here is what Trump's response was to the restraining order. Recall, the judge stopped Trump's administration from doing the duties of the executive branch. Trump is now responding. These are lawsuits brought by multiple blue team states in the District of Rhode Island. Some people saying, why Rhode Island? What are you doing there? Are you shopping for judges or something? A little forum shopping happening here? Don't know. But here is what Trump's DOJ says in response. All right, listen, Judge, you're being nuts. This court entered a TRO, a temporary restraining order, on January 31st. Since that date, undersigned counsel and the defendant agencies have worked diligently to assure compliance, including by conferring with the state's counsel about specific compliance concerns that they have raised. Now, during the scheduling conference that we had back on February 6th, the state's lawyers identified one issue that they wanted to raise: whether the temporary restraining order also enjoined the implementation of an earlier, remember the earlier OMB memo that was sort of revoked, but kind of not really, because this has been going on for a while. They say, based upon the correspondence, however, we, the government, Team Trump, were unaware of their continuing compliance concerns beyond that issue. In other words, they didn't tell us they had any problems with anything. We could have explained what was happening. And thus, the government were likewise unaware that they were even going to file any of this stuff to enforce the TRO in the first place, right? So we were talking back and forth. In fact, we had conversations about what this does, and these people aren't that bright, so they're trying to figure out what we're doing. We educated them on this, and we were negotiating this. Then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, they've popped this TRO on us, like, emergency? For what? We were just talking with you weirdos. So they say, look, the government respectfully submits that the actions that were described by them below do not run afoul of the court's injunction. Okay, we're not doing anything against your orders, or at least not a clear and unambiguous command. Rather, what we're doing are good faith, diligent efforts to comply with the injunction across the broad spectrum of federal financial assistance implicated by this court's order. Remember, over the weekend, and we read this on our members only stream on Saturday, read through what the original order was. I'm sure you're up to speed on that now, but it was, the Treasury Department can't treasury, essentially. Thus, Trump's actions are consistent with the court's order, and nothing should happen here, right? Don't penalize us for just doing what your order required us to do. And by the way, they're appealing this. Okay, so they're cooperating with the court's order and they're taking him up. Now, to the extent the court concludes otherwise, we have no objection to the court clarifying, like if you think we're doing something wrong, then you can refine your order. Go back and refine your order. And we have previously requested a clarification on this, by the way, to the extent that they misunderstood the scope of the order. So why don't you tell us, like, if you're going to cancel this and this employee can't go over here and he can't touch that email and he has to give him his keyboard and you have to take your mouse and give it to that girl over there or whatever gender that is, the whole thing. Even if the court clarifies its order, however, the court should not modify the order itself to include additional terms that are brought by the states, the blue Democrats who love corruption. They say, in particular, the order should not affirmatively direct that the government, so Trump, immediately restore funds, right? Because that's what they really want, is that money. They want their money back. They're like, give us our payment, give us our cash. The states were like, put that money back in our bank account. We need it. Otherwise, we're done. They say, what? Immediately restore funds? They say, Your Honor, that is too impermissibly vague. Like what? They just want like a big coffer where the Letitia James can just waddle up there and just gulp it down, just slurp down that federal government money. and would interfere with the lawful exercise of agency discretion that are not challenged in this case at all. Now, additionally, the court should not direct defendants to clear any other technical hurdles to implementation, right? So they can't, you have to do this and give Tish her money and give Fannie her money. This is also vague and unnecessary. And at most, the court should clarify your order, but don't modify it. They say, here's the background, by the way. Now, on January 31st, this court entered a temporary restraining order. They say Trump shall not pause, freeze, impede, block, cancel, or terminate any awards or obligations with regard to financial assistance to the states. And defendants shall not impede the states' access to those awards except on the basis according to statutes, regulations, and terms. So keep giving the states their money. Now, if defendants engage in identification and review, don't freeze or do anything else with those funds, right? Same thing. You're restrained from reissuing or adopting any other directives. You can't rename the document. So don't take that directive and just call it something else, like we're watching you. And your attorneys shall give notice and comply with this as well. So Trump's people said, look, to comply with the deadline of providing written notice to all defendants, we did. We drafted and distributed the written order, and we filed it. Now, in their accompanying notice, the defense, Trump and the government, described their understanding of the scope of the order. And we noted that the plaintiffs only challenged the memo, the OMB memo, saying, therefore, defendants did not construe the order as enjoining the president's executive orders themselves, right? So we're, lots of ways to splice and dice this, says Trump. So they're just, we're just going to, okay, I can't do it this. I can't have that guy come in here. Great. I'm going to have that guy come in here. Perfect. He can come in here and fix it. He can't, okay, fine, whatever. Oh, he can't come in here either? Great, that guy's coming in. Hey, you're next, come in here. And a lot of that's happening. Now, defendants also stated that they do not read the order as imposing compliance obligations on federal agencies that are not named in this case. So like, maybe you named this agency and this agency, but all the rest of them, we're just going hog wild over there. So you didn't say in your order, so there you go. Now, to the extent that we misunderstood this, we requested the court notify us. Let us know, Judge, and we'll, of course, comply with you. No problem. Now, 2 days later, then, last week on February 5th, Trump's team administration received an email from counsel from the state of Oregon expressing concerns that certain grants from the Department of Labor, EPA, and USGS, Geographical Survey, a component of the DOI, remained in pause, right? They said, wait, the judge said you have to turn the money back on. Oregon's like, give us our money. We're doomed. We're going to lose everything. Trump's administration responded at 5:19 a.m., informing Oregon's counsel that they said, we'll take a look at it. Yeah. We got an email late, responded first thing the next morning. Later that day, Trump sent an email explaining the status of each funding stream. He said, look, the Department of Labor grants had been paid, save for one that remained pending as the payment system continued to process unusually large volumes of payment requests. Everybody's like little fat piggies at a trough, just slurping it down, getting their government funds, which is our money. The EPA grants were in the process of being unsuspended, with one being unsuspended, and the Trump administration inquiring with the EPA about prioritizing the others. Now, as to the USGS DOI funds, Department of Interior funds, defendants, Trump explained that neither USGS nor DOI was a defendant in this case. Like, we were ordered to stop their funds. And further, that 3 particular grants were paused pursuant to another memo that we signed, which preceded issuance of the OMB memo in this case. So exactly right. So, oh, great. Okay, we can't do that and that and that. Great. We're going over here. We're doing this. We're doing this. We're doing this. We're doing this. So we complied with the order. So stop your hystericism. A lot of the lefties on X and elsewhere on MSNBC and else have been screaming, Trump's going to violate the order, the judicial order. He's going to, and we were commenting about that last week. I think we said it was Andrew Johnson, but it was Andrew Jackson who said they have their order, let them enforce it. And I believe he was talking about the Supreme Court at the time, not about some useless district court. But in the context of this, they're saying we are following your order to the T. And I just want to pause and also explain that I think the reason there's a little bit of an impeachment trap happening right here, and the Trump DOJ is going to have to tiptoe and tap dance around this for a bit, but they're trying to ensnare them in violating a court order. Okay, they want you violated a court order. This is Trump being reckless and dangerous to American democracy and blah, blah, blah. And then they'll try to peel off a couple of Republicans and, launch some sort of impeachment process, which I think is, DOA as long as the Republicans have the House, but the back half after the midterms, we don't know. So ensnaring him in these things, he's violating a court order. They're not. They're just being ultra compliant. Oh, you issued an order? We can't do this? Great. We're going to do all of these other things you didn't limit us to. Why don't you come back with an overbroad order, even though this is overbroad, but why don't you overbroad it even more? In other words, make your disgusting opinion here that's limiting what the executive branch can do. Why don't you just make it harder? Come back and also say, we can't do the USGS. Oh, we can't do the DOI. Oh, we can't even comply with this other memo. So basically, Judge, if you've already tied both of our hands, tie our feet, gag us, put us in a noose, throw us overboard, and then we'll appeal all of that up, right? In other words, this court is destroying itself by showing how illegitimate it is. So we're going to follow all these orders. You're going to injunction the whole executive branch, Judge? Probably. He'll try. Counsel for Oregon responded on Friday and did not express further compliance concerns. So why are they filing an emergency motion for a temporary restraining order? Because they're hysteric babies, and all they do is just cry chicken little. Everything's falling. Everyone's going to die, and they need to get their money. They need that money unsuspended. Separately, Trump also got an email from another state council on Wednesday expressing broader compliance concerns as certain agencies and grant programs and requesting a response prior to a scheduling conference the following morning. So the Trump administration provided an initial response that same night, 9:42. Love that, right? Fast. Noting the difficulties of providing a substantive response in the time frame provided, and you just gave us limited email details. So I need what are you looking for? But we responded. Nonetheless, Trump administration explained that several agencies used the PMS. Oh, that's just perfect. The federal PMS. Great. Payment Management System. There is a lot of PMS going on out there on the Democratic team, no doubt. They're like, man, they're PMSing all over the place. Where's my access? Where's my money? Operated by the Department of Health and Human Services. PMS was continuing to work through a backlog of payment requests. And that's why Letitia was filing this lawsuit so aggressively. Now, defendants further update at 9:15 a.m. the following morning, and we gave them an update, told them everything they needed to know. Now, during the scheduling conference, then the states raised concerns about more funding pauses. Where's my money? Now, aside from the correspondence with the counsel from the state of Oregon, the states did not respond to our other emails about any other compliance. They didn't even respond to us. Instead, what did they do? They just went and filed an emergency motion, okay? They're such losers. The Trump administration is working with it, sending them emails back and forth. They're like, where's our money? Where's our money? They just know that they have a judge in their pocket, and so they'll just file this TRO knowing that they'll grant it. They file this temporary restraining order on the afternoon of a Friday, February 7th. They're cheaters and cowards on a Friday night. So pathetic. The court then directed us to file a response by Sunday, February 9th, now, which we're reading now. So defendants here, Trump and the Trump administration, have worked in good faith, Your Honor, to interpret the scope of your TRO. You might call this aggressive compliance, maybe overly aggressive compliance. We tried, Your Honor. And we are expeditiously resuming any funding that is subject to it. We're doing everything you tell us to do. We're going to appeal it simultaneously, but we're not stepping out. Defendants respectfully request and submit that the actions described below are consistent with your order, or at least a reasonable construction of that order. We interpreted it as you said. Now, to the extent the court intended otherwise, we have no objection. Clarify it if you want to, but you don't need to modify anything to include any additional terms, because what they put in their TRO request was hogwash. Like, we're freaking out about funding and everything. They're turning it back on. They're in compliance with the order, Oregon, being very Oregon of you. In particular, plaintiffs' request modifications would create even further ambiguities and threaten to interfere with lawful agency functions that aren't even at issue in this case. And so, Judge, don't even think about that. Now, plaintiffs' emergency motion, here is what they say. We have been acting in accordance with your order. And again, they're appealing it. So it's ruthless compliance, knowing they're going to appeal it, and this will all be coming back. Plaintiff's emergency motion raises several different compliance issues. The states are whining, saying questions about whether this order prohibits implementation of an earlier memo, right? So they're kind of baiting them to making their request way overbroad. It's already overbroad, but what, make it bigger? Yeah, say what else we can't do. Am I the commander in chief anymore? Can I ride Air Force One? Am I allowed to do that? Whether any delays in payment stemming from this run afoul of this court order, and whether any other specific grants are properly paused. On each issue, Trump's administration, we've complied. We've acted totally consistent with your order, and there's nothing else you need to do. They claim in this case, their claims in this case focus only on this memo, the J27th memo, the OMB memo. And they brought that in their claim. They said this action seeks declaratory relief with the OMB budget. They wrote it in their complaint. They're suing us over that. But 6 days before that, we issued M2511, right? And so that directs that agencies immediately pause disbursement of certain funds appropriated under the IRA. So a whole separate issue. It's like layers on layers on layers. Oh, we don't have authority over here under this one because you sued? Great, we're going to sign this one over here. So we signed that. And we also issued this one. Now, any injunction, now here, they don't challenge that. They're not challenging M2511, and that's why we're cutting their funds off, because of that. They didn't even file that in their complaint. So any injunction must be interpreted with respect to the underlying claims. So if you want to say now that you want to add that claim, do you want to add a bunch of other claims too? And the more they add, the more ridiculous it gets. Okay, they're trying to injunction the whole executive branch. So they're just, yeah, add that one too. And in general, courts cannot enjoin conduct that's not even in the complaint. And these states are all, popping themselves in the head. They're like, what? We forgot to include that in our complaint. They're all going to have to go back to the drawing board, all, 18 of them, geniuses. Similarly, courts generally do not enter preliminary relief that seeks to undo these past actions. And so they write, in light of those principles, we read the court order properly. It applies to 13, but we're operating under 11. So you guys goofed. That was issued 6 days earlier, and they're not even challenging that. They say, well, no, it covers it. We brought a claim against 13, so that also covers 11. They say that they should also be restrained from using any other name or any other, document to try to manipulate and just adjust the name. Now they say, but that language still focuses on giving effect to the OMB directive, to the directive. We issued the other one 6 days earlier. It's not giving effect to that because we issued it before. So that one's valid. So the states then point to language in the notice. But again, that written notice was directed to agencies about what they may may permissibly do going forward. And so it didn't instruct them on any of those things. And by the way, those directives are not challenged here. So given the fact that they're not challenging 11 officially here, we have interpreted our job as the following. And we're not going to enjoin ourselves against something that's not in the complaint. Now, even if this court disagrees, we certainly did not run afoul of some clear and unambiguous command. And we've been complying diligently. They next say that some payments still have not been dispersed. Okay, the states are here saying, where's our money at? We want it. Accusing Trump of relying on vague operational and administrative reasons. Like, where's our money? It's like, well, we're working on it. It's in the pipeline. Relax. During the parties' correspondence, the states never requested additional details about these reasons at all. And they're calling them out on this emergency motion and all this. They're not even asking about this stuff. They were seeking to provide Trump's administration, the states, with information as quickly as possible. But what we're doing is not non-compliance. As an initial matter, they say, any delays resulting from the agency's ongoing operation of a program rather than the memo would not violate the court's order. So there are other alternative explanations for why things are delayed. Not everything is just because of the memo and compliance. Sometimes somebody calls in sick, for example, and they're the ones who has to check that box, and that's all. So that's all it is. But, we're working on it. The order expressly acknowledges that agencies retain their authority to operate their programs according to their statutes. So they're following their rules and their laws. And the court order told them to do that. So they're doing that. So stop your whining. Agency decisions to review payment requests to ensure that they're appropriate and consistent with the underlying program is not a violation of this order at all. In fact, the court told us to do that. The court said, follow the law. That's what we're doing. It's like, we're complying so hard with you, even though there are inconsistent requirements. And it's also highlighting the illogic of the orders. Although it's like follow the rule and execute the rules and follow the laws. Well, the laws are to appropriate payments appropriately, and that's what they're doing for the first time in history. Now, although it is not possible to discuss every particular grant, one salient example is with the PMS system. Although PMS is operated by HHS, it serves as a funding disbursement platform for numerous grants. After issuance of the memo from Trump, there was an unusually large number of entities that attempted to draw funds down in PMS, with many recipients, look at these freaking scammers, larger than normal amounts, sometimes up to their full grant balance, okay? All the pathetic thieves out there were raiding and ransacking the system in real time. Trump issues the executive order. They all log onto their portals, and they're all PMSing all night, getting their records. Give me my money. Full grant, right? Normally you go in there, you request your quarterly disbursement of whatever it is. But this time they know the money's getting cut off. So they're just slopping it up. Disgusting people. Trying to get it before the money shuts off. That's not their money anymore. When Trump signed that order, you were done and cut off. Someone should have shut that off immediately. Just unplug the friggin' power cable. Break the circuit breaker. No more money. They're all going in there. They're all just approving it, hand over fist, raiding the funds. PMS has a long-standing process by which the system flags unusual payment requests for further review because these thieves were running away with it. As of January 31st, 2025, approximately 7,000 payments were flagged for further review from the criminals, which then required PMS to coordinate with the awarding agency for review and approval of each payment request. Despite the significant burden on PMS program managers who were probably, PMS had been working expeditiously to resolve this backlog. As of earlier today, there were less than 600 requests still affected by this issue, and PMS continues to work through them to disperse the funds. This type of operational delay caused by processes related to the operation of the program is not a freeze or a pause, okay? We have to work through all the criminals who are trying to ransack the funds. Rather, it's simply a feature of PMS working through an unusually large number of requests. Similarly, other agencies have implemented reviews to ensure funding is being appropriately distributed. At the Department of Energy, for example, since January 20th, in anticipation of a Senate-confirmed Secretary, DOE has followed a process of reviewing and approving all payment requests. Now, as the states even acknowledge, that review began before the issuance of the memo. Okay, we were already making sure the funds were appropriately being dispersed, not just handing them out to people who said that they were helping Ukraine or transgenders. And that approval process has allowed payments to proceed in an orderly fashion. Review processes like the one at the DOE, implemented based upon the DOE's own statutes, okay? The DOE is just actually checking now. Doesn't violate the order. All they're doing is just handling things appropriately for the first time in a long time. Finally, other agencies have exercised their own discretion. They're doing a bunch of stuff on their own. We're not guiding them to do this. They're exercising their own discretion and their own authorities to take their own action in compliance with the procedural requirements of all the awards. We're not, even the states do not contend that our written notice is an improper reading of the order, and they agree that agencies retain their own authorities outside the OMB memo. So it's not that Trump and the memo are causing the changes. It's the normal operation of the agencies that are causing the changes. So if you want to invalidate this little memo here, that's fine. We still have the memo number 11, and we still have all of the other agencies that are just doing business differently now. So Trump is not directing them through this memo. So this memo is not, even if you, let's say, decapitate this memo, so what? The rest of the executive branch is still in full and total operation. They say the state suggests that non-compliance must be occurring. Trump is violating your order, Judge. Because if Trump were able to cut off funding streams, they are equally able to turn those streams back on. This is how Democrats think. All the blue states, they're just like, well, it's just, just like Venmo it. Just send it over. We need it. People are dying. So just fine, zealot. That's fine too. I don't care. Okay. But it's not surprising that not distributing funding is easier than going through the process of reviewing payment requests to ensure that they are lawful and appropriate. Nor would it be surprising that unsuspending grants may take longer than suspending them, given the need to ensure that properly suspended grants remain suspended, right? There's some that we're keeping suspended. Thus, the mere fact that some payments may have taken longer than normal and some grants were not immediately unsuspended does not mean that we're subverting you at all, Judge. In fact, to the contrary, agencies' processes of reviewing and dispersing payments are not connected to the memo at all, and they're not the subject of your injunction. So we're going to keep doing what we're allowed to do because your order is limited. Accordingly, those agency activities are not running afoul of your order, and they don't warrant modification of that order anyway. So the states are complaining about something they didn't even sue over. And even if such agency activities were encompassed within your order, no modification is warranted given the fact that we did our best and completed diligent efforts to comply. And our decisions don't violate your order anyways. By the way, the states say that there are several specific grant programs and actions that violate the order, but each of those actions are lawful. Here's what we've got. First, the states want their PEPFAR money. AIDS. Everyone's going to die of AIDS overnight, immediately, tomorrow. First, plaintiffs attach a declaration about stop work orders on 6 grants. Although the grants are awarded by subcomponents of HHS, those 6 grants are funded by the State Department through PEPFAR. Because those grants are funded by the Department of State, they are subject to the pause of foreign assistance brought through by the Department of State or USAID directed by It's Rubio, which, as we understand, are not the subject of this court's order. Okay, so we are back tracing the stoppage. What we're trying to do here is essentially create a chain of custody, essentially. Who issued the order, right? From who to whom, all the way down the chain. And they're identifying a different chain of causation for Rubio. Oh, well, the reason those funds were suspended, it's not because of the OMB order, which could have suspended those funds, but Rubio did that. The agency did that. And it's outside of your order. So, okay, you had that order, but we're stopping those funds anyways because we have a separate source of power to stop those funds. For one thing, the Department of State is not even a defendant in this case. They didn't sue him. And the states do not appear to dispute that non-defendant agencies are not subject to the court order. So if you didn't list us here, then we're good. More substantively, by the way, Rubio's pause was issued on January 24th before we even issued that memo that they're suing over. And it was an exercise of his own statutory authorities over foreign assistance. And he's already been confirmed by the Senate and taking care of business over there in the Gulf of America. Thus, even if these particular funds were subject to the court's order, the stop work orders would still be permissible as being based on the agency's authorizing statutes, regulations, and term. And it's not the memo that they're suing over, which hadn't even been issued yet. So we're stopping those funds with a different source of power. Now, second, they say the states contend that the National Institutes of Health abruptly canceled an advisory committee review meeting. Oh no, an advisory committee review meeting is going to be postponed. We're all going to die in connection with a grant for Brown University Public Health. Great. Per their own declaration, however, funding for the grant is still coming to you. So sorry your little meeting got canceled. You'll have to go invent some other utility somewhere else. The court's order governs continued funding for grants, not the scheduling of meetings. So sorry they didn't have a meeting, but they got their money. And it doesn't affect the availability of the funding. So I don't know what their problem was, but they can go have a meeting. They're getting paid. And third, the states invoke Head Start programs, right? Because all the kids are going to die too. Those programs are funded by HHS and they're subject to the PMS issues discussed above. Counsel for Homeland has confirmed that there is no pause for Head Start programs for the kids. Now, finally, the states point to another executive order that was issued on January 28th, where the president directed that all agencies shall, consistent with applicable law, take the appropriate steps to ensure that institutions receiving federal research or education grants that end the chemical and surgical mutilation of children. Remember that White House executive order. By its own terms, however, that is a new condition on grant funding and doesn't pause existing funding. So that executive order is different from the other types of pauses and further highlights the need to construct your order narrowly, Judge. And so in sum, everything that they're complaining about that we've done is totally consistent with your order, or at least a reasonable construction of that order, because what you're trying to do is injunction the executive branch. And so we're trying to like tap dance around this stupid order, and we're doing it. But we're also, Rubio's got his power over here. This other memo gave us this power over here. The other agencies at the DOE are just doing what they're doing over there. So we have not violated the order, and their request should be denied. Now, to the extent that the court disagrees with the above and concludes that any of our actions are contrary, the court should simply clarify the order's intended scope and allow Trump to comply with the clarified understanding. Okay, if you like, in other words, they're baiting them right here. If you want to come out and injunction the DOE and the Department of State and all these, and say the agencies just can't basically do anything, come and do it. Do it. There is no need or basis for modifying the order to include the requested additional terms. Now, in particular, the states request that the court order Trump to immediately restore funds until the preliminary injunction motion can be heard and decided. But that language fails to define what those funds are. They want it all of it, the whole treasury. They should all just get little debit cards and they can all just have access to the whole thing. Bank account USA, it's theirs, free reign. That would have to be restored. And thus, we don't even have sufficient guidance on what you're saying. What do you want? Moreover, that affirmative directive saying that funds must be restored is contrary to your existing order, which acknowledges that agencies can still pause funds as long as they do so under the law and in compliance with all the procedural requirements, which is what we're doing. Now, the state's own motion recognizes that these pauses are lawful. They said, of course, there could be an instance where some law allows for a pause, and the court therefore should not modify the order in a way that would upset this understanding and intrude on our lawful discretion over the funds. And second, the states also request that the court order that Trump and his administration immediately take every step necessary to effectuate the order, right? Like everything. They have to stop everything, cancel your meetings. You're not going to another Super Bowl anymore. And you're just get everything. Clear this stuff and implement this. Give us back our money. This is what the Democratic Party is for. This is what the blue team is doing all day long. They just want those funds back because they're nothing without them. That language is likewise vague as to what that requires as well. Now, given that we have acted expeditiously, you don't have to impose any more requirements on us. And so to the extent that the court thinks that the defendants, Trump and his administration, should take further steps to comply, just clarify your order, but there's nothing else you need to impose upon us. Signed here by Daniel Shui in a nice filing here from the Department of Justice. And we can see what they're doing, right? They're basically baiting them. We've got other alternative sources of power to make these changes. The agencies are acting lawfully under their existing powers, and the leaders of these agencies have now been Senate confirmed. So we've got advice and consent of the Senate. So it's got the legitimacy of the election of Trump by the American people, the nomination of a legitimate person who was confirmed by the Senate. So it's as legitimate as you can be. And then the courts come out and are trying to stop them from doing those things. If you want to do that, Judge, come out and do it. Tell us how that's illegitimate. What's so funny about this, too, is like, if they get this, if the Supreme Court comes out and says, they're right, there is no executive branch anymore, then that undermines the next term that the Democrats are in the White House, if that ever happens again. At this rate, I'm not sure that does. But the point is, they're trying to by attacking Trump here, they're trying to set precedent at the Supreme Court that would neuter the executive branch, which they have been the ones who have exploited. They've exploited that for decades now. However, it would also enable them to create this permanent government state where any threat like a Trump could not come in and clean house anymore, which I think is probably a bigger victory for them. So that was the order from the Trump team and the administration in. This came out from the court today. They say the state wins. The states win. Their request is now granted. This is what Trump is appealing. He says, it is a basic proposition that all orders and judgments must be complied with promptly. Saying here, they issued a broad, categorical, this is from the judge, all-encompassing directive freezing federal funding. And the plain language of the TRO prohibits that based on the OMB directive or based on the executive orders. So this lunatic judge has just taken control of the federal branch, the executive federal branch of government. You cannot do categorical pauses or freezes, according to this judge. The defendants received a notice. The order is clear and unambiguous, and there are no impediments to their compliance with this order. They say the states, the Democrats, let's call them the Democrat AGs, have presented evidence in this motion that there are still improperly frozen funds and refuse to resume disbursement of those funds. And they now plea that they're just trying to root out fraud, says this judge, just to be clear, this guy right here, okay, who's from Rhode Island. He says, but the freezes in effect now were a result of a broad categorical order and not a specific finding of possible fraud, right? So this judge is now saying you can only do these things if you reach a certain threshold that I, as a judge from Rhode Island, think is appropriate. So this judge is now the president, according to him. The broad categorical and sweeping freeze of federal funds is, as this court found, likely unconstitutional and has caused and continues to cause irreparable harm to a vast portion of this country. That is not his job to make that distinction. Irreparable harm is a judgment call. It's our judgment as the American people that President Trump is rooting out corruption, grift, and money that goes to this guy's friends. It's not irreparable harm. Their stealing of this money is irreparable harm. Their misappropriation of the funds. These pauses in funding violate the plain text. And so in response to this, they can request targeted relief from the TRO, from this court, where they can show a specific instance where they're acting in compliance with the order, but otherwise withholding funds due to specific authority. Saying, so therefore, consistent with the Constitution, Trump and his administration are ordered immediately give them their money back during the pendency of this temporary restraining order, okay? Give them their money until the court hears and decides the injunction. Trump must immediately end any federal funding pause during the pendency of the TRO. Judge is nuts. The defendants, Trump, must immediately take every step to effectuate this, including clearing any administrative, operational, or technical hurdles to implementation. You can't even have lunch or use the potty until the Democrats get their money, says this lunatic judge. And the defendants must comply with the plain text of the TRO, not to pause any funds based on pronouncements or the directives. They must immediately restore the withheld funds, including those federal funds appropriated in the Inflation Reduction Act and the Infrastructure and Improvement Act, the directives of the other order. This is nuts. They weren't even suing over that, right? In their original complaint, they didn't even sue over OMB M2511. In their complaint, they put 13. He says, it's included. I'm including the other ones too. And Rubio, you're under my control. And Department of Energy, you're under my control. The defendants must resume the funding of institutes or other agencies. And I'm sure I'd love to know, man, what this guy's friends work at or who he hangs out with. How much money are his closest of closies going to get as a result of all of this? I'm just curious. I don't know. It would be worthwhile, I think, for maybe Data Republican to take a look at connections there, or somebody, more sophisticated than yours truly. But this judge doesn't even explain where he gets the power to do this. at all. He just says, you're banned. You can't do that. No more disbursement of funds. So, of course, Trump is appealing this immediately, as we saw. Going to take that up to the Court of Appeals in the First Circuit. We'll see what they do. And then I'm going to imagine this gets fast-tracked to the Supreme Court quickly. But there are some interesting things and interesting conversations about this. I mean, on the one hand, if Trump just snubs his nose at this, right, then the refrain from the Democrats will be, he's violating a court order. This is lawlessness. And they will try to impeach him for this and many other things. So I think the smarter strategy is just to play the game for a little bit. It's ruthless compliance. Oh, okay, we can't do anything. Great. The Democrats are so salacious for their money, right? They want their money so bad, salivating for it, dripping out of their mouths. You just comply with it, take it up on appeal, wait for the Supreme Court to deal with it, and then continue on in the process of cleaning house. It's just a temporary setback. I know there's conversations about impeaching these judges, which I think you could easily look at this case and probably do an investigation into him, see who he's talking to, who is advising and paying him, and everybody else in this little orbit, in this little lawfare judicial gambit, and come up with some basis for impeachment. Of course, that's a very tall standard. You need 2/3 in the Senate, if I remember correctly. And so that's going to be a difficult thing to do, to try to impeach him. I had another off the wall idea, which I thought was pretty interesting too. You know, we have precedent in this country for Congress creating select committees and just doing whatever they want with them. Remember that one when the House of Representatives passed H.R. 503, and then they just created a committee that didn't do anything like H.R. 503, and they called it the January 6th Select Committee. So what if we just created a judicial interference select committee just to investigate this type of crap? I'm not saying that he did anything illegal here, but what if we just created a committee? Don't even have to put any Democrats on there because it doesn't matter. Mike Johnson can just try it for a while and get frustrated like Nancy Pelosi did, and then appoint whomever he wants. And we can have a whole committee on there. Then what we can do is investigate this stuff. And what we can do is send John J. McConnell Jr. a nice fat subpoena, a legislative subpoena. He can respond and say, I've got judicial immunity. I don't have to appear and not show up. And because when Steve Bannon made that argument from the executive branch, or when Peter Navarro made that argument for the executive branch, the courts themselves laid down the precedent that it's invalid. Your immunity is invalid. They said subpoenas to Bannon and Navarro were valid. They had to show up even though executive privilege was invoked, and brought them in there to testify or demanded they testify. When they did not testify, they got arrested, charged with crimes, and sent to prison. So it's a process crime, right? So we want questions answered by Judge J. McConnell. How about we form a little committee, subpoena his butt to testify. He doesn't come testify. He's in violation of a congressional subpoena, and then we take it from there. And all you got to do is that one time, right? Just do that one time. Now, I know that's kind of an out there idea and off the wall and so on and so forth. But my point is, that's what the Democrats do, okay? That's how they play this game. They literally did that. So you're like, Rob, don't be ridiculous. It sounds ridiculous coming out of my mouth. That's what they did, literally. Except they didn't go after a federal judge from Rhode Island. And I'm curious about these judges. You know, why are the judges immune from RICO conspiracy cases, RICO charges? Where is he getting his advice from? And we already know that judges are not beyond reproach. Judge Juan Merchan from New York had his daughter selling advertisements and working for the Democrats. So maybe it's time to start asking questions about these judges. For a long time, these judges have just sat there and acted like they're above it all. They're not. We can see this. This is a judge who's trying to insurrect the executive branch. He's in control of the country now. We didn't elect this guy ever. And he's running the executive branch right now. They're going to scream, Elon, Elon, Elon. No one elected Judge John J. McConnell Jr. He was appointed by Obama and confirmed by the Senate. You know who else was appointed by Obama and confirmed by the Senate? By Trump and confirmed by the Senate? Russell Vought, OMB. Rubio, Secretary of State. Scott Bessent, Department of Treasury. He's got no more legitimacy than the executive branch does, and he's trying to usurp and take control of the whole country. If you can get obstruction and criminal charges for false electors, what the hell is this? It's obstruction and interference under the mask of judicial superiority, and it is as naked as any other attack. It's just coded in legalese. So we're very hopeful that the DOJ continues to explore all avenues, and we know that they will. Now, another case that is happening right now is, oh man, we missed the Tulsi thing. Sorry about that. I was a little fired up. So here's what's happening with Tulsi. Did she get confirmed? Oh man, I guess we missed it. Tulsi confirmed?
Mr. Hickenlooper.
Oh, hey, are they voting?
No.
Oh, they're voting right now. Whew, we caught it. The hell is everybody? Tulsi starting up right now. Oh, it's just a cloture vote. Okay, so this isn't the big vote. All right. All right, so we'll keep our eye on it.
Miss Ernst, aye. Mr. Sheehy, aye.
All right, so the vote's going on right now. John says this is just a cloture vote, then the next vote will be in 30 hours from now. All right, so we'll keep our eye on it, but it's not the big one. Not the big one as we thought. Thank you, John, for the heads up on that. And I was behind on that one. All right, thank you for that. All right, we'll keep our eye on it. Hopefully all goes according to plan. Over there, let's talk about another lawsuit that is currently underway in a similar vein. And let's do a refresh to see if there were any updates in the last hour on this one. Haha, there is. Okay. So we just had a bunch of stuff get filed today. And let's see what this one is. Fresh right out of the oven. Let's see. Okay. So let's just do a quick update on that one. I don't think that's anything too interesting. But this is another lawsuit that is taking place also out of New York. So here's this one. From the Department of Treasury. Getting my bearings. Okay. The Trump administration under attack, another judge stonewalling and slow walking Trump's executive orders. This was a case brought by the state of New York and a bunch of other states against the Department of Treasury. And this is a filing that was submitted here. Let's just confirm this by U.S. Attorney Jeffrey Osterreicher and Bradley Humphreys for the Civil Division. And this was a request to modify the orders that were limiting the Treasury from doing the Treasury's job. Now, there are a bunch of these cases flying around. The other case that we talked about was in Rhode Island. This one is in New York. This judge is another ultra-lefty judge, and her name is Jeannette Vargas, and she put other limitations on the Treasury Department. She was born 1973, and she was a clerk for Sonia Sotomayor in the Supreme Court, of course, of the United States. Mega lefty. Here is what she looks like. Miss Jeannette A. Vargas. That's our judge. Coming out of the Southern District of New York. And she was nominated by, or I would say supported by Kristen Gillibrand back in 2024. Okay, so mega lefty, another district court judge. This one's out of the Southern District of New York. This is Trump's motion to stop the restraining order that she imposed on the Treasury Department. Here's what the Trump DOJ says. It says, all right, Judge, look, at 1 a.m. on Saturday morning, you issued an ex parte restraining order that purported to limit access to a swath of the Treasury systems. You said that only, quote, civil servants could touch it, while all political appointees could not touch it. You dropped that on Saturday. Now, on its face, the order could be read to cover all political leadership within the Treasury, including Secretary Bessent. Judge, you're taking over the Treasury Department now? They say this is a remarkable intrusion on the executive branch that is in direct conflict with Article 2 of the Constitution and the unitary structure it provides. What are you doing taking over the Treasury? There is not and cannot be a basis for distinguishing between civil servants and political appointees. You just made that up. Basic democratic accountability requires that every executive agency's work be supervised by politically accountable leadership, who ultimately answer to the president. And now a federal court, consistent with the separation of powers, cannot insulate any portion of that work from the specter of political accountability. No court, not even you, can issue an injunction that directly severs the clear line of supervision that the Constitution requires. Because the order on its face draws an impermissible and anti-constitutional distinction, it should be resolved and dissolved immediately. Now, at minimum, Your Honor, this court should either clarify or modify its order to avoid the most direct constitutional and practical hazards. As written, the injunction is markedly overbroad. There is no sound reason that it should extend to Treasury's leadership, who are charged with overseeing and administering the department without interruption. To the extent the order applies to senior political appointees at the Treasury, it is an extraordinary and unprecedented judicial interference with a cabinet secretary's ability to oversee the department to which he was constitutionally appointed to lead. Interfering with those basic functions, even for a day, will cause irreparable harm to the government. By contrast, these states have not even attempted to show how they would suffer any irreparable harm as a result of the leadership being excluded from the injunction. Now, if this court is unwilling to grant relief, the United States requests the order be stayed, pending the disposition of an appeal, or at minimum, that such relief be stayed for a period of 7 days so we can take this up to the next court. Now, to be clear, notwithstanding the court's orders and the defects, we are in compliance with it. As described below, we have taken what they believe, Trump's team, all necessary steps to comply with your order. But this is not a durable status quo. To remedy the serious problems beget by this order's breadth, the court should immediately dissolve, clarify, or modify the order while this matter is being briefed or argued or decided on the merits. Now, we've reached out to the states on February 9th. The parties are in negotiation, and we hope we can fix this and come to an agreement on what is happening. But here's the background. The states filed this action on February 7th, end of last week. They brought a variety of claims under the APA, the Administrative Procedure Act, and the Constitution, saying, you can't make these changes without notifying us and blah, blah, blah. All claims, Your Honor, are based on ill-informed allegations regarding expansion of access to data systems within the Bureau of Fiscal Services. At 9:30 p.m. on Friday evening, counsel for the states sent an email to the Part 1 judge copying the deputy civil chief in the U.S. Attorney's Office for the SDNY and a senior trial counsel for the Federal Programs Branch Civil Division, U.S. DOJ. The email attached copies of an application for a temporary restraining order supporting declaration in an order. Given the late hour, there was no meaningful opportunity to review or to respond to the application that night. At 1 a.m. on Saturday, without hearing from Trump, the judge entered a restraining order that largely adopted what they wanted. Okay, so the state went at like 1 in the morning on a Saturday. These states did, these little hack lawyers. And they went and they found a judge and like, this is an emergency. Little Johnny's going to die of cancer. He's in my in my car right now. I'll bring him in here. I'll show you. Judge's like, no. And it's canceled everything. All of the orders. Now, the relevant part, the court's broad ex parte order, meaning you didn't even hear from us before you did this. And this is an interesting point as well, right? Oftentimes the courts just default to the government. Like the default is like, if you're going to sue the government and get the executive branch to stop doing something, it's like, you got to have a real big showing for this. The government wins by default all the time, unless you go and you shop these Democrat judges who clerk for Judge Sotomayor. So she comes out and she says, wow, yeah, you're right. The Secretary of Treasury, who was confirmed by the Senate, just like this judge was, she says, I'm in charge. He's restrained from granting any access to the Treasury Department payment record, Bureau of Fiscal Services, all this. Like, you're done. I'm in control of the Treasury because I'm Sonia's little judge now. Despite its overbreadth, we've substantially complied with this anyways. We are not granting access to any Treasury Department payment record, payment systems, or any other data systems maintained by the Treasury Department containing personally identifiable information or confidential financial information of payees. other than to career employees, which is what we think you meant, Judge, when you said civil servants, but you just made that up. So we think you're talking about employees because you're just nuts. With the need for access to perform their job duties within the BFS, who have all passed background checks and security clearances and taken all information security training for federal statutes and more. In fact, we got a declaration here attached. So we've got other people who are just going to do it then. Okay, we're okay. You don't want us to touch anything? Fine, we're not going to touch anything. But this guy's there, he's doing it. In addition, Trump's administration are not granting access to political appointees, special government employees, or government employees detailed from an agency outside the Treasury as well. And finally, we're complying with the court order to direct any person prohibited above from having access to the record systems. And we told them to immediately destroy everything as well. So there you go. And, this is an interesting thing. We're seeing this pattern develop where they're like, look, honestly, you guys are whining about all this stuff and they're almost making it seem like it's not that big of a deal. Like it's a big deal. Like it's insane that you're asking us to do all of this, but okay, we'll comply with it. And they're anchoring in the record that they're in compliance with the courts. And they're essentially, almost giving it to them to confirm the overbreadth of the judge's orders, which will all then, that there will be repercussions for that down the line. But they're just anchoring it in. And we did it. We did everything. When a temporary order is issued ex parte, without an opportunity for the other side to be heard, you should now hear us. So hear us now. As noted, the order purports to limit access to a vast swath of Treasury systems to only, quote, civil servants, whatever that means, a term that's undefined, and you are prohibiting all political appointees from access to these systems, okay? The distinction is fundamentally incompatible with the Constitution, though, and the federal bureaucracy is and directed, by the president. So, okay, Judge, we'll do that. It's like, you want us to do that? Okay, we'll do it. Consistent with the Constitution's design, this court cannot order that certain operations of our branch be performed wholly by civil servants outside the ambit of accountability, right? So, okay, I guess you're asking us to violate the Constitution? Okay, we'll try to comply with that if you want us to. Now, moreover, along with directing the work of the Treasury, its senior leadership, including the Secretary, may be called upon the President to talk about the Treasury, to restrain the Secretary and his Chief of Staff and immediate inferior officers from gathering information with the department. That would be an extraordinary interference with the President's Article 2 powers. So, okay, that's what you're doing. So you want to do that. You really want to come in here and do that? Okay, let's do it then. Saying, as written, the order violates the Constitution and it should be completely dissolved. We're complying with it, but you're in violation of the Constitution. So I hope you know what you're doing because we're doing what you told us to do. Now, at a minimum, the court should either clarify or modify this order to say it doesn't actually cover the Treasury senior leadership. Limiting access to the Treasury senior leadership, as described, is overbroad and unnecessary. Even Thomas Krause talks about it. As of the date of that order, no political appointees, special government employees, or government employees detailed from an agency outside the Treasury had any level of access to any applicable payment systems or data systems other than Mr. Krause himself. Okay, so all the hysterical crying from the Democrats. Elon's going to get your social security numbers and all that crap. Nobody got access to it anyways. And no such employees currently have that access, okay? It's lifetime Treasury people like Krause. Nonetheless, it is important that high-level political appointees like the Secretary, his Chief of Staff, Deputy Secretaries, and others, they need to receive data from those systems so they can do their jobs. Although these high-level officials they're not going in there and accessing the systems. They're appointees of a duly elected president. They have a duty to receive that information. Career officials may need to include data from those systems in significant briefings, memo, and other demos to show how the department is running. If you prohibit political appointees from staying informed of other significant issues, even including the Treasury Secretary, that would significantly interfere with their abilities to do their jobs. Now, moreover, plaintiffs, the states, nowhere suggest in their complaint that these high-level officials improperly access the Treasury systems. Accordingly, there is no injury to them from letting senior leadership do their job. Now, in this circuit, a showing of irreparable harm is the single most important prerequisite. They haven't shown any harm For these reasons, including the Treasury's political leadership that's within the scope of the order, it's unconstitutional and it's impermissibly overbroad. And as we saw, this will be a big problem, and this overbreadth. And they actually would like, and they just got it actually, the other case in New York, that judge, to make it even more broad, right? They made it even broader, where they're like, perfect, great. So accordingly, if the order is not dissolved, given the ex parte nature of the order and the absence of any reasoned basis to enjoin this court should at minimum clarify this to exclude the Treasury person from coming out, from being prohibited. And there are 3 other issues that need to be resolved. First, as part of the regular maintenance of the Treasury Department and their payment systems, the department and its fiscal and financial agents often employ contractors to perform routine and emergency maintenance. These services, which are provided under contracts, are essential to how this all works. So you got to let them come in. In addition, BFS relies on employees of the Federal Reserve Bank. They host a ton of stuff. And although the work on the systems is governed by a letter of designation, these Federal Reserve employees are not BFS employees. Oh, okay. Oh, wow. This is interesting. Oh, wait, you said, okay, we're going to comply with your order. I guess that means all these Federal Reserve people also can't come over here, Judge. So I guess we're cut off from talking to the Federal Reserve. It's like, oh, you want to play with fire? Okay, here you go. Here. Have a can of gas. So we can't do anything. So I guess the Federal Reserve employees are cut out. Accordingly, we respectfully request that such maintenance and operational support by contractors and Federal Reserve employees be allowed to continue. Okay, you cut us off, so I guess we're cut off. I guess nobody's doing any work there. Second, external users or payers have limited access to the systems as a routine function to allow them to submit coded payments. We do not understand the order to extend to these external users, or should we limit them too? And finally, we request a stay signed by Trump's DOJ, Senior Trial Counsel, Civil Division, Department of Justice, Jeffrey Osterreicher, cool last name, in the House, signing off as Assistant U.S. Attorney for Trump's DOJ. So all of that going into the court, and that judge actually did a little bit of a backtrack on some of this and said, here's an order earlier, says the parties, right after Trump submitted that response, the parties are ordered to meet and confer. So hopefully you guys can resolve this. So we can dissolve, clarify, or get rid of the TRO, right? The judge is like, I'd actually like to get rid of that since I just banned the Federal Reserve from working with you guys. If no agreement is reached, then their motion shall be due by 5 p.m., the states, and Trump shall reply by 11 p.m. tonight. Wow. Okay. So those motions are coming in. Doesn't look like this is going to be resolved. They tried to recuse this judge, not going to be resolved tonight. Then we have a bunch of people moving to appear pro hoc vice. So these are other attorneys coming into the case from out of state. Then what we saw is the state's memo. So the states filed their memo here. Trump will issue his response tonight, like hours from now, and then we'll see what happens tomorrow. So we'll come back and we'll follow up on that tomorrow. Now, I wanted to also share with you this post. So it's in addition, this is going to be the next one that's on the chopping block that they're going to rally around. It's the CFPB, Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Rapid Response 47 put together a good thread on this. Says the CFPB is the brainchild of Pocahontas Warren, has long functioned as another woke, weaponized arm of the bureaucracy, and it's now being used against individuals disfavored by the so-called elite. You're hearing a lot of crying about this one. It used its slush funds to support radical advocacy groups. One of those groups was the Mississippi Center for Justice, Soros-backed entity, targeted religious liberty and also helping illegals come in. Another is the Legal Aid Society in the District of Columbia. Senior left-wing officials, hundreds of times for more welfare spending, and more. And targeted Chicago small businesses and more. Nice thread here. But that's Elizabeth Warren's project, which is now coming to a screeching halt. And I also came across this article just to show you the scope and the scale of this. This was reported by the Times of Israel. It says, here's a report. Trump's suspension of U.S. aid has already caused a loss of 35,000 jobs. 35,000 jobs in Jordan, which is just a lot of jobs. And it's not American jobs. Those are Jordanian jobs. The Trump administration and their recent decision to suspend this money is already having, quote, a devastating effect in Jordan. The national outlet reports that some 35,000 jobs have been lost as a result of the move. Both Jordanians and Americans working on American projects funded by the U.S. One of Jordan's larger nonprofits is quoted in the report as saying, more than half of its budget comes from U.S. sources, and the aid suspension is affecting operations tremendously. The lack of funding is covering all of the sob story stuff, and it's a ripple effect on the whole economy. The whole economy. It's like, what about our economy and how we're funding all of these other entities? Mike Lee, senator, shared this one, said, on no planet does DOJ want to take away anyone's social security check. All right, this is ridiculous. And on no planet is violence warranted by what DOJ is actually trying to do, which is to stop fraud, waste, and abuse. We've got these pastors here calling DOJ and the people working to just rein in some of the absolute grift and waste, calling DOJ evil, saying they're devil folk and other things, which is kind of when you know they've jumped the shark. So here's actually Scott Bessent, who came out and is explaining what they're trying to do. Here is what he sounds like.
Elon and I are completely aligned in terms of cutting waste and increasing accountability and transparency for the American people. I believe that this DOJ program in my adult life is one of the most important audits of government or changes to government structure we have seen. That when I was in my 20s, we had the Grace Report, and there's some great suggestions that came out of that, never implemented. Under Clinton and Gore, I think it was to government efficiency or reduce government. Nothing happened. So President Trump came in, there's a big agenda, and I think that there are gigantic cost savings for the American people here. And I think it's unfortunate the way the media wants to lampoon what is going on. These are highly trained.
They're getting paid. It's their money. They have a vested interest in making sure that money and those spigots turn back on. Otherwise, what are they going to do?
Professionals. This is not some roving band going around doing things. This is methodical, and it is going to yield big savings. Elon and I,
we are excited about where else this will go, because it's not just the Treasury. There is a lot more coming. Here was another post. J.D. Vance reposted this from this guy, Jed Rubenfield, constitutional scholar and lawyer, said this. JD's correct about this, and his examples are exactly right. Here's what JD said. If a judge tried to tell a general how to conduct a military operation, that would be illegal. If a judge tried to command the attorney general and how to use his or her discretion as a prosecutor, that's also illegal. Judges aren't allowed to control the executive's legitimate power. Absolutely right, and they're doing that right now. Trump and the administration are being very compliant, avoiding the impeachment trap, avoiding the criticism of this is lawlessness. It's a slower road. Let these judges overbroad themselves and embarrass themselves in the meantime. He says, where the executive has sole and plenary power under the Constitution, like commanding military operations or exercising prosecutorial discretion, judges cannot constitutionally interfere. And here, the president is exacting and executing the laws according to his constitutional power to run the executive, perfectly within the purview of his power. And Trump says, we're just warming up, baby. In 24 hours, Elon is going over to the Department of Education, Department of Military, and more. And they're getting doged too.
I don't know if it's kickbacks or what's going on, but the people, look, I ran on this, and the people want me to find it. And I've had a great help with Elon Musk, who's been terrific.
Bottom line, you say you trust him.
Trust Elon? Oh, he's not gaining anything. In fact, I wonder how he can devote the time to it. He's so into it. But I told him do that. Then I'm going to tell him very soon, like maybe in 24 hours, to go check the Department of Education. He's going to find the same thing. Then I'm going to go to the military. Let's check the military. We're going to find billions, hundreds of billions of dollars of fraud and abuse. And, you know, the people elected me on that. I don't know if it's kickbacks or what's going on.
And so Elon is leading the charge. Democrats are trying to focus on him. They think that this new phrase like bait and switch, like they voted for Trump, but they got Elon or something like that, is going to be useful. To us, all it sounds like is people screeching because they are no longer getting their stolen money.
Mr. Bennett.
They were people who went into the Walmart on Black Friday and ransacked everything, running out after store after store after store. And now that grift is coming to a close, and they're not happy about it. All right, and so let's see what that was. So looks like Tulsi. Is this live? All right, motion to invoke cloture on the nomination of Tulsi in Hawaii. I don't know if this is still live. This says it's live. Here, let's do a refresh. Let's make sure we're live. So Tulsi should pass. And 52 to 42 yays.
During my time, both in Syria and Lebanon, I made it a point.
All right, so 52 yays, nays are 42, so that looks good for Tulsi. And she will, of course, get her vote, I think, next week. Although today's Monday, maybe it'll be this week. So, all right, my friend. So it has been a great stream. If you're just joining us, quick recap on what we talked about. We had two cases that we covered in detail today. This one out of Rhode Island, brought by this judge named John J. McConnell Jr., an Obama judge appointed by Barack, and who is now saying that Trump has no control over the executive branch. Trump, of course, has appealed this today, and we'll be watching this one very closely. Then we talked about this judge, Miss Jeannette Vargas, who is the other judge in the Southern District of New York, who submitted another temporary restraining order against Trump to stop him and the Treasury Department from, managing the Treasury. So we're going to keep our eye on that one as well. Obviously, they are very upset about what this is doing to their institution. Democratic money evaporating overnight, states begging for it to be turned back on, because every day that they don't get those funds, their constituency has to go do something else. They have to go get a real job doing something else. They can't write their little trans comic books anymore. And so now, my friends, let's see what you have to say about it. I appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for spending the time with us to go through these cases and joining on the fun. Thank you for subscribing to our channel, wherever it is you're watching this. Of course, I appreciate your super chats and donos. Let's take a look at who is here and joining us on this beautiful Monday. I hope your weekend was outstanding and you're feeling energized and rejuvenated as we're back here today. Thank you to Donut and to John and to Carrie B and to K Bean for us clipping today. Here we are. It's Monday. Hey, what's up? Happy Monday. DC traffic backs up as 17,000 federal workers are expected at a base with parking for 4,400. Oh, that's great. Well, they should carpool and they can save the planet. That's funny. Oh, gosh. They're all going back to work today. Oh, man, we should have celebrated that. We should have got up extra early with some popcorn. Knox, what's up? Happy Monday, all. Here's a flashback of Trump nailing a trick football throw. From Trump, nailing a football throw. All right, let's pause. Let's take a look. Since it's Super Bowl time. All right, let's see what this one is. Here's Trump. Back in the old days. There's Trump. Let's see. Get some audio. All right, leave that off. Here's Trump. All right, let's go. Mr. Future President. Here he goes. Hey, you got it right in there. It was good. That's a hard shot to make. That's pretty hard. Thank you, Knox, for that one. Hey, what else we got? Rick D says, LOL, Molly Hemingway just filed this on Schumer's whistleblower forum that he set up. Here's Molly, retaliation. I was thinking about submitting one too. Like, I know a lot about these corrupt Democrats. Like, I was thinking about submitting one I wonder if Chuck Schumer knows that Senator Whitehouse's wife goes to a racist club. I don't know if he knows. Here's what Molly said. I wasn't sure whether to file this under retaliation or not, but Senator Schumer, top Democrat, he threatened the justices, Kavanaugh and Gorsuch. That's great, Molly. Almost forgot about that. Yeah. He said that they would pay the price and there'll be a whirlwind coming for you. You're not going to know what's going to hit you. It's a great complaint. Hopefully Chuck Schumer looks into it. Pritchie, what's up, Pritchie? Says, this is getting beyond a joke. Impeachment of judges and lock them up. Go Trump and Musk. Yeah, I think we should form a judiciary select committee. And then we can do whatever we want, anytime we want, with no repercussions at all. No one cares. Hey, what's up? Sharpie Guy says, do you think Biden staffers were selling pardons? I do, because otherwise, why? I don't know if his staffers would be able to pull that off, but I think probably Hunter was. Yeah. Hunter and James. Hey, Ed, 2276 says, what would the judges do if Trump writes an executive order barring judges making judicial orders for 90 days? They would ignore the executive order on separation of powers grounds. Should Trump ignore them too? Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, the problem is you get into a constitutional crisis, right? And they're basically baiting him to do that. Like, they want him to do that. They would love it if Trump's like, F the courts, I'm doing whatever I want. Because then they would say, oh, look, see, we told you, he is an insurrectionist, and now we should impeach him. And that would be the whole new game. The whole new game, right? So he's not doing that. He's being like, strictly compliant, overly compliant. Oh, we can only have civil servants here from the DOT? I guess that's not the Federal Reserve. The judge gets that. She's like, crap, what did I do? The whole financial system comes crashing down because this judge is a nut. Chubby says, the Democrats seriously learned absolutely nothing from the last election. Just more and more of the lawfare, even severely overstepping their own authority. This is unbelievably ridiculous. I hope the administration gets out and starts blasting these activist judges for their absurd rulings. Yeah, these are bad. These are like, oh my gosh. The judges are just trying to take control of the executive branch. Like, it's their last gasp. And the judges are going to be like final boss also, by the way. They're like final boss level. They're like level 99, whatever, 100 hard. Like that final monster at the end of Super Metroid where you're shooting at its head and then its head like becomes just like comes out of the thing and becomes its body. And you're like, no, it's there. It's more. Got to keep going. It's kind of like that. They're everywhere. They're pernicious. Yeah, thank you for that, Chubby Stubby. Glocky says, to give you an idea of what the American First Movement is up against, here is a judge on the verge of tears, no lie, and profusely apologizing to an illegal in his courtroom while getting apprehended by ICE while he was in the courtroom, being arraigned for causing a motor vehicle accident. That's crazy. Judge is like, I have to sentence you. I don't want to, but I have to. Okay, thanks, Judge. Glocky, I keep saying it. Elon or Trump need to spend their money and just go through the data brokers, just like the FBI does to get around getting a warrant, and find out everything on these judges, their money, electronic comms, text messages, everything, and expose them all. I mean, they targeted Trump's political opponents. So, they set the precedent on it. I don't want our country to go down that route, but these guys are acting unlawfully and unconstitutionally. So I think we should form a select committee to investigate them accordingly. Matt T, so sick of our taxes getting wasted. Thanks, Rob. Me too, Matt. And I don't know about anybody else, but the scale of the waste, the scale of the fraud was even shocking to us here. It's like, to me, it's like, oh my goodness. And the people that are getting it, it's like the media is getting it. Like George Soros is getting it. It's like all these people who you thought like earn, and a lot of other like commentators like Bill Kristol and these guys, like they're all embedded in it. You're like, wow. Sometimes you think people get to where they are because of merit or whatever. I didn't for those people, but it just shows you, it feels like Plato's cave. It feels like you're waking up, walking out of Plato's cave, and we don't even know the half of it. Like we've seen probably just the tip of the iceberg, just the top 5%, just through USAID and all this stuff. The caterwauling and the response by the Democrats, I think shows you, wait till we get to the military and the CIA and really the FBI and DOE and all these domestic stuff. I mean, this was like foreign stuff. It's just going to be, and how hard like we work for this money to go to these other places like the comic books or to these recitals or whatever, to pay taxes to fund all of these other people's lifestyles. And then we wonder why Washington, D.C. is so rich. And, just like we just all paid our taxes. We're just like, it's disgusting. And all of these, like, they've all been lying to us or just not talking about it for my whole life. They're just sitting there. We're going to go cut government waste like every year. And they all just got caught with their pants down, man. And it's disgusting. And then they're fighting for it, which makes it even worse. The Democrats are like, we need more of this. Turn it back on. We're going to die. Glocky. Democrats are unbelievable. They whine about Elon finding fraud, waste, and abuse, and then turn around and hire people who literally stole millions of dollars doing fraud and abuse. We have to live in a simulation. Former lead recovery consultants at Haggerty firm hired by Bass pleaded guilty to stealing disaster funds. That's great. That's amazing. Wow. Perfect. He's perfect for California. He'll do a great job. Hey, Glocky says, read the highlighted part about what this same judge who blocked DOJ out of the Treasury said about the government transparency when it wasn't about Trump. He said, we need to find a way to light a fire under these agencies, the judge said to Manhattan U.S. Attorney's Office lawyers. Yeah, but not that much of a fire, not that much of a fire. Hey, Ed 2276 says, how can the court force payment? Isn't the purpose of a TRO to maintain the status quo until a full hearing? Oh, I think they're saying the status quo was government grift. So that is the status quo. Like, turn the floodgates of the money back on. If the TRO is overturned, how does the government get the money back it didn't have to pay? Yeah, that's the problem. That's the problem. It's like, who's got the burden, in other words? And somebody's getting harmed, right? They're saying the states are getting harmed. The government is saying we're getting harmed. I think the default ordinarily is that the government, right? You don't just get to turn off the entire Treasury Department because some goons filed a lawsuit. It's like lunacy. But this unelected district judge is making that decision and now taking control of the executive branch, insurrecting the country. Will Crump, can AG Bondi go after this judge for obstructing a legitimate investigation? Maybe, if there's evidence, if there's probable cause there. I have reasonable suspicions about what these judges are doing. It feels like collusion between the two of them. It feels like Norm Eisen and Mark Elias have their fingerprints all over all this. So maybe there is worth an investigation. I mean, soon Kash Patel will be in there. The FBI will have a lot less J6ers to go investigate. So maybe we can go investigate these corrupt judges. Rob, what's up? Says, we're working on it. The check is in the mail. Yeah, there you go. That's a good line. No. We mailed it out last week. Let us know if you didn't get it. We'll mail you another one. Hey, what's up? Elf is in the house. Elf is bringing in 20 new membos. I like that. We're going analog. All your checks are being mailed. It's going through the U.S. Postal Service. We don't know if it's ever going to get to you because we haven't made the Postal Service more efficient yet, but we will. Elf, what's up? Look at this. 20 new membos coming in. Charles Hosier, Jeremiah Greger. What's up, Debbie B? We got Desert Pirate. What if any welding is here? We got Melly, North Idaho Pest Control. What's up, North Idaho? Sherry Super, Ethan Calvin, Billy Lilly, Joe DC. We got Aaron S, Core Logistical Solutions. P Tiger 81 is here. We got Truth Always Wins, John Sparrow, Ryan, Satrina Strother, Coding Light, and Olivia. Gifted membos courtesy of Elf in the house. Thank you, Elf, for bringing in 20 new friends. New membos. We'll see you tomorrow on the members only morning stream. Hey, Sheila. Sheila Poo, a million hugs to you. Happy anniversary, Sheila. 1 year. Love you all. We love you back. Says like, share, and subscribe, and turn on those notifications so you never, ever miss a show. Thank you, Sheila, for that one. And for being a member here. 1 full year. Happy anniversary to us. Nancy Jennings. When it comes to judges, what are the steps Trump has to take to have them investigated? Well, I mean, so if there's the general steps are, if there's reasonable suspicion, cops say, well, that guy's driving weird. I've got some suspicions about that. What is that? Conducts a traffic stop, does an investigation, develops probable cause to conduct the arrest, takes them in, charges them with crimes. So it's kind of an elevation like that, right? That's the general process. Somebody has reasonable suspicion, an investigation starts. If there's facts there, it develops. They can, really launch an investigation and go and panel a grand jury and go get subpoenas and all sorts of stuff. But it just kind of depends on if there's evidence of malfeasance. And I don't know much about this guy, but they created crimes against J6ers and against Trumpers. I'm not endorsing that at all. I would not ever want to create crimes. I'm not a maniac like a Democrat here. But what I am saying is these orders are clearly out of alignment with their sworn duty as judges to uphold the law. And questions should be asked about this so that if there is evidence that would lead somebody to have reasonable suspicion, an investigator, they could pursue that just like anybody else because nobody's above the law. Knox. So how many millions of our dollars will these workers use to fight our president who is carrying out our wishes? That's exactly right. Like they want the money to continue their insurrection, and we're funding it. Trump needs to order a sale of all their buildings, office equipment, dumb motivational posters, etc. at a big yard sale. Google changed it? Rick D? Google finally changed it. It's now Gulf of America down there. Hell yeah, baby. I'm a lot more excited to go down and visit down there in the Gulf of America. Now, look at that. We checked this morning and it hadn't changed. Thank you, Rick Donner in the house, for bringing that to our attention. Hey, what's up? The voice of the people is here. 50 membos, voice. Oh my goodness. Voice of the people. Check this out. So Voice of the People runs Off-Label Podcast. If you haven't checked that out yet, you should. It's right next door on YouTube. And a lot of friends here join in on that one. And we'll be joining at some time in the future. But look at this. We got 20 new membos, courtesy of Voice of the People. Let's welcome them in. So we got Scott S. is here. I'm the captain now. Jason Newton, Fadius Patius. We got T Razor. What's up, Debbie Doo? Little Darker's here. Rockhound, Merkin King. We got Proud Pups, Mike Hackett, Nancy Randall, Brandon McLean. Steph is here. Lone Star Medic coming in. Baria Raisa Bay is here. Charming Clown, Crypto Crackhead, AJ Arguello, the Promised One on PS4. If you want to check that out, play him. He'll probably whip your butt though. Richard Robertson in the house. We got D. Holland, Dean Paparella, Yurter. We got Shane Wiseman, Lee Bart, Bart C, George Snelling, Design Rhythm. 6 is here. Buddy, Y2KX, Brady Vaughn, Lillian Murray, Jennifer Starks, Dykstra. We got Booger Light, LR Marhan, CP87, 4TKS is here. Real, Dasmole, Tammy Fee, Mel Comp, Pete Spangler, Whiskey 77, what's up? Billy French, Uncovered 80s Vault, Charlie Olveri, Terry Labeth, Don Carb 3, and Kitten Lang, gifted membos, courtesy of Voice of the People in the house. Voice of the People. Thanks for doing that, my friend. 50 new membos. Absolutely amazing. And we'll see our new membos tomorrow morning. New membos, if you wanted to catch our little Super Bowl talk from this morning and more, we recorded that this morning as well. So Voice of the People, thank you for bringing in 50 new friends. And we hope we see everybody tomorrow in the morning. Sheila Pooh says, who has standing to initiate an impeachment on these corrupt and partisan judges? A House member, a House of Representatives person would have to introduce articles of impeachment, and then they'd have to vote on it, go through all of that stuff, and then they would be tried in the Senate. So I think it's simple majority in the House, and then in the Senate, it's 2/3. So like the likelihood of them getting removed is basically none. Stop the China Fraud Hustle says, check Bartiromo underwriting, the enemy plus the China hustle. From Stop the China Fraud Hustle. What's up, Stop the China Fraud? Hey, SD Goldstar Mom says, you make court dockets fun. Thank you. Thank you, SD Goldstar Mom. We try to liven it up. You know, I know it can be pretty dry. We try to have some fun. Thank you, SD Goldstar Mom. And I can't wait to open what you delivered on on camera, in your package that you sent. When that happens. Hey, CF Rob says, it's my money and I need it now. Well, call JJ Wentworth. call Big Tish James. Call Letish James. Okay, that's what she wants. It's my money and I need it now, says Letitia James and Chuck Schumer. Hilarious. 1-888 Cash Cow. 1-888 Big Tish. Get your money. Thank you, Rob. That's hilarious. Judge McConnell should have paid heed to some Texas rancher advice, says this old guy. Before you step in the pasture, be sure you have your work boots on. Yeah. It's like, you want to play with this? You want to limit us? That's fine. We're limited. We can't do anything. Oh no, we'll stop. Government can't function because nobody can do anything. That'll be the other thing too. It's like, well, we can't do anything. Why can't we grant these funds? Well, because nobody can do anything. You injunctioned us to death. We're all stopped, so nobody gets anything. You want it, you got it. Hey, Glocky, who cares if an impeachment gets the votes to actually impeach or remove the judge? Just do the whole impeachment proceedings live for all the world to see and dump all the evidence of corruption and collusion at the hearings for everyone to see. Yeah, and hopefully, like I said, judges usually exist without much fanfare. You just have to go after one judge, and I think they would make an example out of one of these corrupt judges, and the rest would pay mind. Bonnie says, here's two possible solutions. An emergency appeal directly to the Supreme Court, or two, have Congress pass a bill that rescinds all the money in the Inflation Reduction Act and Jobs Act and the other one. If Congress allocated the funds, they can undo it too. I'm with you on that, Bonnie, and I don't think that we should let up the pressure on the Congress people. There's a lot that Trump can do, and he can do it, but he should have the full faith and backing of both houses of Congress right now. Like, where are all the Republicans speaking out against the Democrats? The Democrats are in hyperdrive right now. They're like losing their minds every day. There was another press briefing today, all screaming out there today. I think I may have had one of those clips. Yeah, look at this guy.
All of your disability benefits, all of the payments that go to your bank accounts, all of that information now belongs to Elon Musk. All of the people.
They're just nuts. Was that today or was that last week? I don't know. But they're just kind of all out there just going nuts. And I would like to see the Republicans responding. They should be out there every day. Elon is not cutting any, Elon's not doing this. Elon's not doing that. This is how it's working. All day, every day, every single Republican. And they should also be trying to pass bills. Thomas Massie introduced a bill to eliminate USAID. We talked about that. So, they should be here supporting this and pushing back against the Democrats. I'm tired of not hearing them. B.H. Williams says Congress needs to limit the jurisdiction of these district courts. They could do that too. Again, I don't think they've got the stones to do it. The Republicans. Congress, they were all getting fat off this money too, which is why they're not showing up. The Republicans are all like, eesh. If it was the opposite, the Republicans would probably be out there. But the Democrats would never cut it. I think they were all in on this game. The Republicans just can't go screech about it because their voters would be mad. More here says, 10 new members are coming in. Katrina Rose, welcome aboard. Thank you, More Here, for bringing in even more here. LaDonna Ames, we got Basil Razzle, Joan Brown, Alice Fordham, Rogue Rose is here, Bugman 1962, Tamara Rummel, The Virus, and Taylor Dutton. Gifted membos, courtesy of More Here. Bringing in 10 more here. Bobsco, what's up, Bobsco? 7 months as a membo. Says, Robert, say, buddy, why don't you invite Elon Musk? To hang out or what? It's a great idea. I should. Why don't I? It's only Elon Musk. Not a big deal. Thank you, Bobsco. I appreciate your encouragement. Why not? Hey, Bobsco, gifted 1 membo. Streaky's coming in. Thank you, Bobsco, for bringing them in. Hey, Ollie says, Rob, you look very tight. Yeesh, tight like a tiger. I think that's from Goldmember, right? One of those. I didn't know where that was going. I read that first sentence and I didn't really know where that was going. So thank you for clarifying that on the back end, Ollie. Black Dragon. What's up, Black Dragon? These corrupt judges need to be investigated. Well, sure. Yeah. A select committee should investigate judicial corruption because these judges are insurrecting our country right now. Hey, Black Dragon. Thank you for that. Osborne Treyman says, Reagan hired Peter Grace, a billionaire, to do the exact same thing. It wasn't DOJ then. It was the Grace Commission. This was the private sector survey on cost control, was requested by Reagan, authorized in executive order. Now, he used the famous phrase, drain the swamp. The survey's focus was on eliminating waste and inefficiency. Grace chaired the commission. Reagan asked members to be bold. I didn't know that. The Grace Commission? Interesting. Good to know. Did they do anything? Did it result in any serious reforms? Useful Idiot says, can't the POTUS claim the court has lack of standing? LMAO. Well, we read one last week that did have a lack of standing, or maybe we read that on Saturday. We read that on Saturday, I think, where another judge found that they had no standing. And I was wondering that too. Where are all these people coming up with standing from? It was a labor union, and they said, you haven't shown standing. Just because there's a prospective harm that might happen to one of your members in your unions, it's not good enough, and dismissed it. It was a great one. I think we released that here on the channel. R. Alvey says, I just got here, but I heard you talking about the judges. Could this be an impeachable offense for the judges? Probably not. I mean, so it depends. Like as a general rule, no, right? A judge's order coming out, the judge just said, no, this is my opinion. I think this is what the law says. And there's no basis here for any of these rescissions. And there's real harm and all this. Haven't seen a lot of evidence that they're pointing to anything other than like imminent harm and irreparable injury and all these abstract made up things. But they're encroaching on, the presidential powers, Article 2. And that I think is a problem. But you could just say this is just a judge being a judge. You might have a disagreement with it, but it doesn't rise to an impeachable level offense, which would be a high crime or misdemeanor. Now, that's giving the benefit of the doubt to these judges. But if you looked into it, for example, and maybe you found that this judge was colluding with Norm Eisen or somebody, right? Or there was communications, just hypothetical, between him and other Democratic operatives, or maybe there was forum shopping and there were text messages that he wanted to be on the bench or something. Maybe there's collusion and there's some criminality there, or there's some abuse of office, or there's other things, right? And if you found that and there was evidence of that, then you could say, well, that judge committed a high crime or misdemeanor or 5 tax crimes, or maybe he's got gold bars like Gold Bar Bob in his closet. Something like that would be. But this opinion on its face would not be a misdemeanor or a high crime without more. It's just a judicial opinion, which is why Trump is appealing it. J-Man, the Times is reporting that Shapiro had a hand in taking out Trump. J-Man, I saw that. I actually saw a response to that. So a person apparently drafted an affidavit saying that he had inside information about the Trump assassination, said Governor Josh Shapiro was the person who did it, sent that into the police, right? Anybody can write up anything and just send anybody anything. So he did that, sent it to the cops. The cops said they looked into it. There's already open investigations. And so they didn't find that there was any basis to take what's in there any further. So that's probably where I would leave that one, J-Man. But thanks for flagging it for us. Larry says, the FBI has uncovered thousands of records connected with the assassination of JFK as a result of Trump's executive order to release the file. Yeah, we haven't seen anything actually released yet, right? It was just a plan to release the documents once the plan is in place. Hey, Deluxe Knight said Josh Firestein had an awesome comedy show Saturday. Josh is on the left. I am the bearded blunder on the right. Ah, Blunder, you look handsome as hell, my friend. Look at you, man. Look at you. Look at that shirt. That shirt adds at least 10 points to the handsome meter. Not that you needed it, but you look great. Shout out. Hope you had a fun time there, Deluxe Night. Great looking event. Spokane comedy. Looks fun. Looks like a great night. Hope you had a good time. Thank you for sharing that with us. Deluxe Night in the house. Looks like fun. Knox says, fellow patriot asking for help to the insane government doesn't kill his ostriches at an ostrich farm. From bcrising.ca. Save our ostriches. Is that Canadians? The Canadians are going to come wipe out his ostriches? They need to be a state immediately. NY says, here is one, Rob. Can a judge tell a physician to prescribe this medication without practicing medicine without a license? Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. It's like you're ordered, if you're a doctor, you're now ordered to deliver that medication. I think there is precedent for that, right? I mean, aren't there cases where courts order somebody to be taken off life support or ordered to give people medication? You can make that same argument about anything. I mean, what were these government agencies that mandated you take the jab without consulting a doctor at all? Just go do it. Were they practicing medicine without a license? They don't know anything about you, but you're mandated to do the thing or else you lose your job. And now all these people are crying because they've been deemed unessential, non-essential. Psychological projectionist says, isn't the judge a political appointee? Yeah, I mean, he was appointed by Obama in one case. So you could make that argument. I think that they would say, no, they're judges. And so they're neutral and they're apolitical. We all know the truth. Rick Donner says, okay, hear me out. The SDNY judges say only civil servants can access the system. Rhode Island judges say you have to pay, but the political appointee has to authorize the payment, which they can't do because they're enjoined from system access. So which order does each court want the administration to violate? Yeah, it's like, We're injuncted from everything. So we're just shutting everything down. Nobody's getting paid anything. You're welcome. We're just following the court order. Nothing else we can do. ELZ says, why can't another Republican judge enter a counter TRO to stop the Dems TRO? They could. I think they could. I think that another judge, well, nobody's suing to keep things open. So I think what you would see is like an opposite opinion. So let's say that these same people sued in a different jurisdiction for the same basis to stop some other agency. That judge could reject them on standing, could reject their claims or whatever, and you could have a split, which is what would happen. And then ultimately, the Supreme Court could resolve it. James Anderson says, Kash Patel revealed the truth of the Vegas shooting. Yeah, that was another very strange one. And the assassination of Trump, attempt of Trump was another strange one where they torched his body. There's a lot we want to know. Hey, Les Selavi, Le Selavi in the House says Congress has totally failed us. They should be doing a line-by-line quarterly at minimum. This breaks my heart to see this deep of corruption. I don't want to pay taxes anymore. I know. Like, what's the point? It's going to other people for the dumbest things in the world. They've got tons of money. Have you seen some of the nonprofit salaries that they get? Like $500,000, some of these people, 400 grand, 300 grand, 200 grand, all the way down the line, like 120, 120, 120. Then it's like, what? And they're getting millions. It's pretty sad and pathetic, to be honest with you. It actually disappoints me in that it took Trump and Trump alone to be in that position with Elon and the rest of the team to breach this, right? They're like dragging us out of Plato's cave. They're like, look at this. Look at what's happening. Look. And the Democrats are still trying to drag you back into the cave. No, it's not. Those are just, no, you don't need to know that. Here, just look at these little shadows on the wall. Just talk about your trans stuff over here. Talk about abortion over there. And call everybody a racist. Don't pay attention to what we're doing. But even the Republicans, okay, were satisfied with all of us being stuck in the cave. They just didn't care. And it's disappointing to me. A handful of them wanted to talk about it. The rest of them were just in on the grift. Ran out of channel names. Oh, man, says, I don't know about you, but I stand with big balls. Me too. In more ways than one. Will Crump, just kidding. Will Crump, how can a judge order the destruction of evidence? Well, he said that they shouldn't have had access to it, right? That was the Treasury data, because I guess they're stealing everybody's social securities or numbers or something. Tina J. Dallas says the greater harm is the total loss of the taxpayer funds if they are released and found to be illegal or abusive. And then there is the overreach in crossing the branches. Yeah, I mean, maybe Trump's DOJ should propose that. Okay, Your Honor, like we'll disperse these funds, but if we later determine that they were found to be illegal or unlawful, we're going to be asking you for an order to go recoup those costs. And if we can't get that money back, Judge, you're personally liable for it. Will Crump, did the judge order the destruction of the evidence in this ongoing investigation? What's to stop someone from deleting data so that it cannot be found again? Yeah, I think her thesis was that they illegally got access to Treasury data that they should not have gotten access to. So therefore, they have to delete the illegally obtained materials. So that's what they deleted. Acid Burn says freedom for all Americans and eventually the world. Yeah, we definitely want it here. And I think once we have it here, I think, America should be such a lovely country. So basking in a freedom, libertas type of glow that it's obvious that everybody would want to be here because we're operating in such a high efficiency format that people should want to come. They do want to come here, but our country should accept it more appropriately. So, okay, sorry for the confusion here. Trying to queue up Twitter. Here's what we got. James Pepper, what's up? Perhaps the Treasury should stop sending out money until clarification. Rob, the Treasury means Social Security doesn't get paid if they screw this up. B. Torn says, first as a citizen under lawfare, now as a president under lawfare. This is my meme. It continues to be Prophetic. David H. says, again and again, awesome how you go through each page of these legal documents and explain it. Stay healthy. Thank you, David. We're always trying for that, my friend. I appreciate that. Hey, Fred. Rob, I was just told the place I rent was sold. I need to be out in 30 days. If anybody can help me and Johnny out, few people will rent with a dog, and I'm broke. Any help is seriously appreciated. This is embarrassing. From Fred Petamonte. So this is our friend, Fred Petamonte. We know Fred. Fred's been around for a long time. This is Fred's. Fred, I'm sorry that this is happening to you, but I do hope you get some love sent your way. Fred Petamonte in the house. And Johnny. This is his rascally pup, Johnny. So they're going to find the new place. It's going to all work out, Fred. Thanks for that. And I hope all is well. Be Torn, good to see you. Thank you for that. Be Torn, Danny McWilliams, and Minnie Tika. What's up, Minnie Tika? Mad Dog is over there. We got Nolver. Perspicacious Pain says, we have to stop these activist judges. Nolver says, Potato Head ignored the Supreme Court a few times on student loans. So why should Trump even bother with these out-of-line judges? Because they'll try to impeach him if they don't. Hey, what's up, Michael Compar? What's up, Michael? And we had Hand of Chaos. Says, as an old lefty, it's embarrassing how much the left are protecting the government from being audited. It's pretty wild to watch them. Just like their level of angst and meltdown is all about the money. You can see it. Totally enjoying your commentaries, Robert. Keep them coming. Thank you, Michael. And my friends, those are our friends on X. Thank you for joining us over on X. And following other watchers out there in the wild, we are going to wrap it up. Before we do, we want to say what's up to Colleen. I'm starting to wonder what states look like now. And Will Crump says, Repubs pulled this silent crap on Trump's first term. Yeah, they better get into the game. Getting pretty tired of seeing Chris Murphy every day, everywhere. It's Chris Murphy. They're out there publishing content, posting on X, and just going all around hysterical. The Republicans should be responding to them in massive numbers and overwhelming force, and they're not, and it's pretty pathetic. Michael McKenna, curious if a provision could be found to charge the states for any funds not found to be unlawful. Doing this could stop these judges in their tracks. Yeah, I think totally. Yeah, I mean, if somebody is committing federal crimes by misappropriating government money, all sorts of fraud statutes and other things, which might be the next step. It's like, yeah, you can come and take all this money, but the DOJ hasn't even started looking at this stuff yet. Like the money's just being ransacked, but there will be future eyes on that down the line. So hope you enjoy it while it lasts. Linda, what's up, Linda Anderson? Thank you for sending in these crocodiles and or alligators. Or those hippos, probably hippos. I'm not too good with farm animals around here, as we know. What's up, Useful Idiot? What is it with these New York judges thinking they are financial geniuses? It seems like a lot of New York officials in general just think that they're geniuses. Like Letitia James, she's like, I'm the smartest person who's ever lived. She thinks she's like Elon Musk. It's hilarious. Thank you for that, Useful Idiot. Really appreciative of those. Thank you, my friends, for sending in those super chats. Very generous of you, and could not do this work without you. So thanks for hanging with us. Thanks for being here. Thanks for supporting the show. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for inviting a friend or family member to come over here and join us. No, I've never been to a hippo farm. Hippos are pretty brutal, man. I've seen some nature videos of those hippos, man. They'll mess you up. Don't play with those hippos. But my friends, we're going to wrap it up. We want to say thanks to our mods and meme smiths here who mod down the fort for us and keep things oh so nice and beautiful and orderly. We got K Bean, Donut Mind Me, Carrie B, Playin' Hooky, Dog Digger, and Jeannette modding the fort down for us, keeping things nice and beautiful. My friends, that is going to be it for us on this Monday. I hope that your week is off to an incredible start. Of course, we are going to come back here tomorrow to get into it again. And in order to do that appropriately, we're going to need to see you right back here so that together, with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Make it a beautiful night, my friends. Sleep very well. I'll see you right back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.